Ow! Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Alright, usually I do my anime reviews after the first 3 episodes, but I'm making an exception in this case because this is based off of a personal favorite manga of mine. Now, as you've seen for the title, it is called Monster Musume no Iru Nichijou, which loosely translated means Everyday Monster Girls. Now, I got into this back when it was a manga because of the really interesting and unique take on the harem genre. Of course, for those of you who are not really all that otaku, the harem genre is a genre of anime which usually has to do with individual, usually male. They do have reverse harem where the main character is female, but we're talking about your normal harem. Main character is usually male, usually a teenager, usually a virgin, usually kind of a wimp, and he is thrust into a situation where he is surrounded by a bevy of beautiful girls who all want him and are more often than not fighting tooth and nail over him. Leaving the poor hapless main character is kind of more or less wall dressing. That is the strength of its humor and yet its greatest shortcoming. But what I like about Monster Musume, or Manmusu as it's called for short, is that it turns the harem genre kind of on its head in that it has a lot of trope breakers. The main character, Kimihito Kurusu, is not a wimp at all. He's a very capable, hardworking person. Um, Always will stand up to defend these girls, um, and is always there in the foreground. Now, before I continue, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. The story of Monster Musume is basically this time when creatures of legend, harpies, mermaids, let me see, centaurs, those types of things, have made their existence known to mankind. And in Japan, there's been a cultural exchange program set up to where these legendary creatures, an individual will have a homestay program where they live with a human family for a time, and so that human can learn from them and teach them also human culture, and they can learn about these they're called trans-species liminals, all kinds of things, these legendary creatures culture. Now the main character, as I said a moment ago, Kimihito Kurusu, and the only time you ever hear his first name, by the way, in the manga is in the very first story arc. After that, all the monster girls that come into his life call him by various pet names. I'll get to that in a moment. But he's accidentally assigned a Lamia named Mia. Lamias are a legendary creature that is half human, female human, by the way, and half snake. And Mia develops feelings for Kurusu. However, because of the law, trans species individuals and humans, well, they can't get it on. So, the first story arc is basically poor Kurusu trying to keep his hormones in check because Mia is very beautiful and Lamia tend to be very amorous. Not only that, you learn as the story progresses about their Mia's real purpose, but that's really way ahead of the curve. So as the story progresses, however, more monster girls come into his life. A playful harpy girl named Poppy, strong and noble centaur named Centauria, a mysterious slime, and literally meaning a slime, kind of like in Dragon Quest, if you ever played those games, named Sue, and let me see, a mermaid named Miro, and a spider girl named Ragnara. And as the story progresses, they all kind of fall into his life. Each and every one of them has a very unique and very interesting type of personality. And that, once again, is how this story kind of turns the trope on its head. Because the girls in a lot of harem anime, if you watched enough of it, tend to not be all that interesting or kind of cut from the same cloth. Are just kind of hard to tell. It just seems to be shuffling the same story in different venues, maybe, or even just sort of with a different gimmick. Now, yes, you could say that this story has a gimmick, but it's still a really fun one that really adds, really breathes new life into the subgenre. Up until this point, the harem genre is sort of a, you could classify it as a guilty pleasure, especially for a lot of guys, because the humor is often sexual in nature, and we're talking very sexual in nature. Some harem anime are, they turn up the sexual content volume to the part where it skirts the line of being pornographic. Now, this one is more just involving breasts. But what's going on here, regardless, is that this show is based on the manga, is sort of a trope breaker in that, like I said, the main character is really strong. The girls are much more interesting, even though it does still play out the same types of tropes that you find a a harem anime or a harem manga. And so they finally translated, excuse me, this particular series from the manga to an anime. Does it translate well? Absolutely. This personally has been an anime that I've really been longing to come out, because I've been keeping up with the manga ever since its inception, and the manga is just amazingly good, hilarious, and the different situations, the different types of monster girls that they all run into, all have the most unique, interesting quirks, and the situations that happen to Kurusu and all the other monster girls get, just get funnier and funnier every single adventure that they go through. The characterizations of each of the monster girls are just, it's just a delight. Poppy is very playful. Mia is very amorous. Centauria tends to be very stoic, almost to tsundere levels. And, well, to describe what a tsundere is another story in general. Um, Miro is a tragedy queen. um, Sue is kind of a big mystery, because she at first is almost like a pet, and then it's shown that she's actually intelligent and actually learns to mimic the people in the house, even taking on a human form, and later on learning to talk. And then Ragnara, who tends to be the most mature of the bunch, but she tends to be a bit of she's into bondage. Let's just say it like that. But it's all played out for laughs, and there is a big common goal in this. And I don't want to try to get ahead of myself in describing the story, because the anime has just come through its first episode. And like I said, I was waiting with bated breath for this to come out. I was wondering where it would be released. They finally found out that Crunchyroll had released it, but for some reason they kept it on the down low. Maybe it's because of the sexual content. I don't know. Even for me, even for me, um, the harem genre has been a bit of a guilty pleasure too. As of late, there really weren't many that I was particularly fond of. I think the last one that I was really into was Familiar of Zero F, and only because it had a very good closure ending, and the main character and Louise end up getting married. This one, I don't know. The manga is still ongoing, but the anime has just now started, and I think that this one is probably one of the more anticipated anime of this summer's anime season. I've seen some good stuff come in for the springtime anime. I was watching Shokugeki no Soma, and Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, which just ended its first story arc, and there had better be a part two to that one. But this one I was really looking forward to. Not only does it have an amazing theme song and pretty cool ending theme, well, I much more prefer the opening theme, but like I said, this was a really big anime that I was really hoping, and a lot of people were really hoping to have been made from the manga. And when it actually came out that they were making an anime of it, well, there was much rejoicing. And from what I've seen, the anime has thus far been pretty true to the first story arc of the manga, just involving Kurusu and Mia, and the consequences of their being together despite the law. And that law will be brought up later on in the story. Uh, you'll see as it goes along. It's pretty much a frame by frame remake of the first story arc of the manga. There may be deviations as the anime progresses, but for a first episode, it did set a good establishment for all the things that are going on, the interspecies exchange program, Mia and Kurusu, and of course introducing uh, the his contact for the Japanese government, a woman who just calls herself Miss Smith, who tends to be kind of happy-go-lucky and really lazy for a social worker. And she is kind of a comedy beat in and of herself with the way that she tends to get him out of scrapes and yet likes to act like a freeloader loafing around the house when at the most inopportune times, especially one scene where Mia was trying to get into Kurusu's pants and she just walks in. Of course, when you watch these kinds of harem anime, you kind of see this. That kind of thing is a common occurrence. But on the whole, it establishes the first story arc very well. And so for this first episode, if you like the harem genre, or at least have a liking for some of the anime out there that went under the harem genre, Tenchi Muyo and all the like, then I think that you owe it to yourself to check this one out. It's really, really funny, and I think it's really going to be delightful to a lot of folks. Like I said, Crunchyroll kind of kept this one on the down low, and it kind of, well, it surprised me, yet it didn't, because maybe because of the sexual content. Trust me, this has a lot less of it than, say, oh, I'm sorry, no anime is like coming right to mind, but I've seen some, like I said, I've seen some harem anime that really, really skirt the line of porn. And those are not ones I'm terribly attracted to. This one, however, was just really funny. The story does have a lot of heart. Like I said, it's characters you really actually care about. And the main character, Kurusu, above all, is an interesting person who doesn't play second fiddle to the girls, but is actively involved in their lives and actually shows that he cares and helps them out with a lot of things, despite him suffering so many bodily injuries because these girls are half animal and oftentimes tend to be much stronger than he is, or at least just do things are so overzealous in what they do that they accidentally hurt him. I mean, in this first episode alone, I've seen Kurusu nearly get suffocated to death twice, and had his shoulder dislocated, and had his hand damaged from, well, delivering one of the most awesome falcon punches you will ever see in your life. So, anyway, I'm just spinning my wheels now. I really think you ought to check this one out. It's really fun, really hilarious. Great story, even though it was pretty much a carbon copy of the first story arc of the manga. But I'm hoping to see more interesting things as the story progresses. So if you like the harem subgenre, you owe it to yourself to check it out. So that's it for me, everyone. Thanks again for listening, and comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the show if you've seen it. It's available to watch on Crunchyroll, and this was part of the Crunchyroll's premium lineup, so you'd need a premium membership in order to check it out. But trust me, it's well worth it. The membership is only around $6 at the very lowest, and so it's pretty affordable. Thank you once again, everyone, for listening, and as always, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. As always, stay lucky and stay blessed. Take care.